Yes, thank you all very much for joining this this final session, this closing session. I think it was a very intense day. I got a lot of information, a lot of good, excellent discussions. I think there's a huge potential in Europe from what I see what was presented. I also see that there is a lot of I would say consensus on things. I mean, we don't see we can never reach full consensus, but I see many people making very similar comments, and I think that shows a bit that we go in the right direction. That's also confirmation and inspiring confidence for us as the Commission, because we also have the feeling we go with our program that we are launching now, we go in the right direction. So when I look at the different sessions of the day, what I've done is I've asked my colleagues to give me some comments that they picked up, the Commission colleagues, and I've also myself taken some notes on some sound bites. So what I do is I go through some of the sound bites in the 4 sessions. I incorporate some of the stuff of the afternoon there. I do not do it separately. And then I would explain to you what are our future plans. So I think that's the key thing at the end to present that. But let me give some sound bites which I took home, just so you get a bit of a feeling what we took home. So Europe's strength is the domain of system design for key industrial sectors like manufacturing, energy, and automotive. Well, we see that B2B platforms for industrial and business IoT will be at the heart of digitization, supporting operational and IT convergence. I think that was also already in the fireside chat. We have intensively discussed in the first session the driving needs, the industrial IoT technology trends. They all came up. You'll find them in the report, but also the benefits and challenges of IoT and edge computing. I picked up a nice statement that said decentralized data processing and sharing in a business ecosystem versus a centralized platform. So sharing versus centralized platform is like sharing welfare versus the winner takes it all. And I think that is quite a very interesting statement. We know that we heard the energy sector must collaborate with other sectors because they are somewhat in the middle, for example, mobility and buildings, and that means also sharing data. We see that today's ecosystems are often driven by one actor. We need open ones to avoid any type of lock-in. And that's an important one. The next generation IoT is where the IT world of, and the name I name performance, security, cloud computing, virtualization, come together with the operational world of robustness, of real time and high availability. So, and the IoT, the future IoT brings them both together with all of these characteristics. We observed an evolution from standard system architectures in the past, like AutoSAR, software platforms that serve many apps, that's where we are today, to in the future distributed container platforms that serve many containers of apps. So that's a bit of an evolution that we see. Edge is always part of a continuum. Virtual reality and augmented reality are killer apps. The IoT architecture is the nexus of integration for everything. Well, maybe beyond functional demonstration and experimentation, there's a strong need for acceptance test, demonstration of business value in real life use cases. This I would fully subscribe to, and I would like to also see in proposals. When I come to the second on ecosystems and alliances, there are needs from industry focus on data sharing. Interoperability is allowing access to edge interoperability, allowing access to edge computing has to be addressed mainly through standardization and open APIs. Standards are key. When I think of what was presented of Gaia X, the recipe for building alliances and ecosystem, there are 3 dimensions. defining the scope and governance, enabling it by defining policy rules, architectures of standards and federation services, and then building open ecosystems like they do for data spaces and industrial platforms. For Europe, it's important that ecosystems and alliances must be open and global. That was said around felt 1,000 times. And maybe a link to IoT in the smart internet, to artificial intelligence. In the smart IoT with embedded intelligence in the future, nodes optimized for the inference phase of AI will reach a major share of the billions of future smart edge devices. And so inference at the edge, learning and training in the cloud or edge cloud. It's not a general principle, but I think there is some truth in it. We want all stakeholders to collaborate on open source platforms, but we also want them to compete on the platform. So we have to distinguish, we have to decide what do we want to work together on, what do we want to compete on. We need to establish and strengthen sustainable and resilient electronics and systems value chains, supporting the European Green Deal that brings it all together. And maybe on the trust and trustworthiness session, we are not very good at deleting our data. We should focus on creating as little data as possible. We heard about the 4 T's of trust: taxonomy, transparency, trust, transformation. Trustworthiness must be made measurable through qualitative and quantitative benchmarks. Trustworthiness is not only a key characteristic of AI systems, but trustworthiness is a property of the whole system, including all components. So that means that's the usual statement we know since decades. Security, trust can only be obtained if it's for all the components and the full system. But the question is still, what is the business model for trust? And making things visible or transparent in using AI can result in viable business models. And last not least, on the visionary concept, that's extremely difficult to summarize because there was so much also on technologies. We heard the roadmaps of several industrial associations. I pick up, we are in the post-cloud area. So we move from cloud to cognitive CPS, and the future is embedded intelligence. I heard a good new word, cloud edge nano edge. So we were always looking for a word. How do we call the edge, part of the edge that's in the leaves of the network that is the devices? So nano edge was brought up today. Interesting concept. There's a need for horizontal cross-sector developments. Containers are needed for interoperability between operating systems. So the concept of container is coming up again and again. The guardian angel is a kind of personal digital assistant who is loyal to the user and not, as it is today, to the provider or the owner. So I think that's a change of system. Next generation IoT and edge computing unlock the potential for intelligence autonomous applications, becoming a key factor for the creation of an Internet of Intelligence. Things, citizens are at the heart of a data-driven city. And last, it's important to be able to orchestrate digital services. The idea is not to revolutionize everything, but to build on existing things. So that's a bit the summary, and I would like to ask you to go to the next slide. And with this summary, I think we got some good basis for what the Commission is planning. And I would like to present to you now our draft of what we are planning. And the draft means it's likely to be published in early May, in the first half of May, but I do not commit to that. So that's why I call it draft, because you never know what happens. So we plan a program of around 150 million euros in 2021 and 2022, which is the blue box. And we plan something in 2003, but that's still in the stars. That's our planning. We don't have work programs or anything on that yet. So what we have in mind is to build on European strengths of the European hardware and software companies, the service providers, and the system and integrators, and to get our part of the future cloud edge IoT continuum. And we have in mind 3 topics that we want to address in 2021 and 2022. The first one is the middle one on the blue box. That's the one on meta operating or orchestration systems, platforms for the IoT and edge computing. You have heard that a lot. It came up a lot. We are talking here about intelligence at edge and device level, orchestration, the edge and devices, modularity, containerization, refactoring, encapsulation, separating data, cloud applications, resource efficiency, AI, real-time support, application aggregators, and trusted computing, just to put some of the words on the table. And I go into a little bit more detail about that in the next slide, not much. Then the second one that we are looking at in 2022 is really looking at new paradigms for decentralized intelligence, like swarm computing. We look here in particular at programming environments as well that program swarms of devices. And that's a major, I think that's a major paradigm shift. You don't program one device, but you program a swarm or a group of devices, and introduce concepts like federated learning, federated swarm intelligence without central intelligence. So that's a big research topic that we plan to call on in 2022. So we have some time to do another event like this on this kind of topic. And the last not least, we have the topic on cognitive cloud. So that is towards going for an AI-enabled compute continuum, where we look at multi-cloud approaches, at containerization, optimization between data and compute, dynamic load balancing, and all of that based on AI tools. So that's a bit the kind of summary. And what is important for us here is that that we join forces because we don't have the big actors like the US or China have. So we can only reach and get our part of the cake if we work together. And as you see, these in the blue box, these topics are mostly or largely, I would say, cutting across applications, though we want them to be applied in certain sectors or verticals. But the development, most of the thinking can be done horizontal. We plan to have another topic in 2023 where we bring that down to open sectoral platforms and ecosystems in verticals, like we did with the IoT and digitizing industry pilots in the past. Next slide, please. This is the key slide finally and I'm focusing now on the European platforms for the edge on the Meta operating system. That's the one that is coming, and I disclose information here because you're so many, so I think I can share it already, though it will come only out in May. The plans are that we have research and innovation actions, so it's what we call research and innovation actions in the past, but with a limited opportunity for Europe, window of opportunity for Europe. So we look at really a relatively high technology readiness levels in this topic. We'll have available something around 50 million euros, but we recommend rather large projects because we want them to become strategic. We plan to open in May and close in September, and we would allow for, in these projects, for allowing dynamically, we would allow for dynamically adding additional actors for use cases, because in such projects, often in the beginning, you don't know the SME that wants to run a use case on the environment. So therefore, we keep that open. We really aim at strategic projects with key actors across the value chain. And there I would like to mention explicitly, from research to industry, from large to small, from supply to demand side, and last not least, what is important, also including not only complementary partners, but also looking at including competitors, because on platforms we have to decide what do we want to do together. So competitors can well work together on such platforms. So the outcome, what we expect, are some of the buzzwords that you will read in detail. That's next generation meta operating systems for the smart IoT and edge computing. And here, when we talk about operating systems, we mean it in a meta sense, also meaning operating system integration platforms, orchestration platforms. So not really in the traditional sense of operating systems. We would like to support hyper-distributed applications, but not only technology, but also business models. We think that's part of these kind of marketplaces, emerging ecosystems. That's part of these projects that we would foresee. We would like to achieve trust across emerging ecosystems through open platforms, and building the ecosystem or start building the ecosystem is part of the whole exercise. We would see in each project, we would like to see 3 demonstrators for prototyping and proof of concept in future-looking vertical applications. So I think this is also showing we want to be very close to adoption. Next slide, please. So in terms of events, what you have seen, we had the fireside chat, you had the report as input to this meeting. We had this strategy forum, we had 500 registrations, and in the plenary sessions there were minimum always 220 present. So I think there was a great interest. We'll have a public report in the next couple of weeks to come. There will be the digital assembly that is primarily focusing on what I showed this morning on deployment issues. It's at the same time the launch of the Digital Europe program, so it's a bit less relevant. We'll have the Research and Innovation Days, which is about everything and including also what we do here, but not very much, one session. But then we plan end of June to have a Cloud Edge IoT brokerage info session. And we will work together with NG IoT to have a website. You will be informed about that for sharing of ideas. I know you are all, when you propose going into competition, but at the same time, we want strategic proposals. So we must find a marketplace for ideas to come together. And we will try that. It's up to you to help us on that, or to keep your ideas secret. And we also will have some, next slide, some sectoral workshops that look at particular sectors. We had one on agriculture already that is organized by the NG IoT consortium. We will also have one on manufacturing, on energy and healthcare. And I think that's important, very important to look also at the sectoral situation, at the data spaces that we are developing in these sectors, and at the needs for IoT in these sectors. And last not least, next slide, there are other events coming up. There's a list here. Not all of them are 100% relevant, but there's always some relevance on this. So this will be also in the slides, so you can have a look at those again. So, well, I do my final words that I don't have to come back. So we had strong representation. I would like to thank Monique, Verena, and all the colleagues from NG IoT and EU IoT for organizing this, for helping us with this. I think this was very successful and ran all very smooth. So thank you very much. Thanks also to Rolf and Stan from my unit and the other colleagues who helped in the background to make this successful. And also thanks to all the moderators who have taken the burden of preparing with us and then moderating one or the other session. And in particular in mind, Ovidio, Mark, Monique, Martin, and Boris. So thank you very much. And Rolf, it's for you now, if you would like to compliment, and then the final words for Monique. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, many thanks, Max, but also particular thanks to all the speakers. I think we tried to implement a new approach, not a linear approach, but to have as much as possible discussions, which made the day a bit longer than expected. But on the other hand, as Max explained, we are in the beginning of a new journey. We are beginning of new concepts, new paradigms away from IoT towards platform system integration and others. So I think that this was worthwhile spending the time, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. I think we would be welcoming your feedback, both on recommendations, on quotes, but also feedback a bit, how you felt about the day-to-day, the interaction, the sessions, and the tools. I think it's the first experience we had, and I think Max said it already. Particular thanks to Verena and Monique for making that possible and having supported us in that sort of exploratory new way of interaction. Particular thanks also to Stan. And Max said it already, but he was always helping me in the background and in making that as smoothly as possible. A final thank also to the different associations and organizations we had, particularly in the afternoon, and then also to our American friends and partners, which were today and presented, made the effort to get up very early and to follow the event and to provide input and support. So all of that, we hope to stay in touch with a lot of registrations to keep a bit, take that as crystallization point, as a new community, to keep you informed, but also to gather as much as possible input, feedback, highlighting new trends, new challenges or solutions or new initiatives to keep us informed, to keep an eye on it, and we try to accompany your journey, but also, looking for new initiatives and new momentum. I think at the end of the day, success always depends on your initiative, on your support, and your commitment. And thanks again, all the speakers, and back to Monique.
Thank you so much, Max and Rolf. It's been a long day. Many thanks to all the participants that have been following us today. We had a huge success, I must say. We had more than 500 registration, 501. And we had on the average more than 200 people in our plenary sessions, which, considering the long day and the dense agenda and many happenings that we have by now online, it's a big success. It shows that really there is a growing momentum that the community, the European community active on the IoT and edge computing is growing. And today we have heard many things here. I wanted just to highlight, we had 36 speakers, we had 14 sessions, we had about 200 tweets with more than 700,000 impressions by now when I'm speaking. We have established more than 800 interaction via the social media, and as Rolf said, let's make sure that we stay connected beyond this event. You will be able to download the presentations. You will be able to access recorded version sessions. So it's very important that you stay tuned on the channels, on the NGIoT.eu channels. Again, what I can say, thank you all, stay safe, stay connected, and let's hope that the next edition of the Next Generation IoT and Edge Computing Strategy Forum will give us the opportunity to be once again all together and meet in person. Thank you, everyone.